My dear friends, it's Erev Shabbos, Parshas Boy, and the Shabbos is Yud Shvat, the 10th of Shvat. Let us first give tzedakah altogether. Yud Shvat, 1950. Yud Shvat meaning the 10th day of the month of Shvat. Actually, on the same Shabbos as is this week, Shabbos Parshas Boy. The previous Rebbe, that is the Rebbe Rayatz, called Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak, physically left us from this world. The Rebbe Rayatz for 30 years led Chabad, led the battle against communist Russia, kept Judaism alive during his tenure. Then 10 years in Poland, including the Warsaw bombardment, and eventually the last 10 years of his life down here in this world, in the States, where he was already physically handicapped. He was paralyzed, yet succeeded to transform the landscape of America, the Jewish America of that time, into what we know today, the most flourishing Jewish community. After his passing, Chassidim were looking to the Rebbe, his younger son-in-law, to take over. For an entire year, the Rebbe refused. And then eventually, on the 11th day of Shvat, in the 11th year, that is Tafshin Yud Aleph in 1951, the Rebbe officially has accepted leadership and the mantle of being the Nasi, the leader of Chabad, and in turn not just of Chabad, but basically the Jewish leader of the entire Jewish world, concerning himself with the Jewish affairs as well as with worldly affairs. But the Rebbe, throughout his leadership, always referred to the previous Rebbe as the Rebbe. He used to say the Rebbe the Shver, the Rebbe the father-in-law, the Nasi Ador, the leader of our generation. Although when he was asked under oath, when he says about the Rebbe the Shver, who are you referring to? At that time, the Rebbe did not want to verbalize it, but the Rebbe pointed to himself. That when he talks about the Rebbe, the leader of this generation, as the Shver, he means himself. Now, how does this fit with saying the Shver, the father-in-law, when it's himself? So the Rebbe once said that it's one neshama in two separate bodies. It's a continuation. It's the same neshama that took on another level, but in two separate bodies. So therefore, you can actually say the Rebbe the Shver, because it's the soul of the Rebbe the Shver, the previous Rebbe that has now entered and grown in the Rebbe's physical body, so to say. Now, exactly what that means, I'm not an expert on souls, but I'm just sharing with you words. But I do want to share with you a fascinating little moment where we see how the things that are beyond our perception and our view, but they're real. The Rebbe always on Simchas Torah would stand on his stage, his platform, and from there encouraging the singing and the dancing of the 7 hakafas. The first and the 7th hakafa, he would enter into a protected area. What am I saying by protected area? Because there were thousands of Chassidim, tremendous pushing, so there was a need of creating a kind of closed-off area with tables, and the Rebbe would enter in this area together with his late brother-in-law, Reb Shmario Gorari, as we call him, the Rashag, and they would dance together. The Rebbe would hold Sefer Torah, and with one hand on the shoulder of his brother-in-law, and together they would go in circles and dance. One particular year we noticed that the Rebbe said something to the Rashag in his ear, and the Rashag was stunned, and later on, when after the Akafas, he was completely in lingo language, spaced out. He was white, and you were able to see that something very unusual just occurred. He refused to share with the people what just happened. But years later, Rabbi Groner, the Rebbe's secretary, shared what the Rashag did tell him. on the condition not to share it further, but then eventually Rabbi Gruner did tell it. And what happened was, during the akafis, as they were going to dance, the Rebbe asked his brother-in-law if he would like to see their father-in-law. You hear me well? This is years or decades after the passing of the previous Rebbe. I'm not sure about decades, but many years later. And the Rashak first didn't understand what he was saying. The Rebbe said, would you like to see him? He said yes. And he actually saw the previous Rebbe dancing along with them while nobody else saw. So when we say that the Rebbe is present, here's a little example. But we want to have him in such a way that we see him physically, and this will be with Mashiach in the Beis HaMikdash this Shabbos.